This podcast, we discuss how to reignite the passion in your relationship and become a sexual soulmate, how to rejuvenate your sexual organs using many techniques, and how to make love like a rock star. Welcome to Anti-Aging Hacks. On this podcast, I interview top experts in anti-aging and longevity, and we discuss the best natural and medical solutions to bring you practical advice you can apply right now to fight back against aging. We also discuss sneak peeks at some huge scientific advancements coming in the near future that will allow us to age backwards. I am your host, Faraz Khan. Thank you for spending some time with me today. Hello, Susan. I'm excited to have you on the show today. You are a sexpert and also known as the Dear Abby of Sex. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, my official title is Trusted Hot Sex Advisor to Millions. And it's a lot of a play on words because is it about hot sex or is she hot? Or because I think if you're going to be a sex advisor, if you're going to teach people how to have hot sex, you should be hot. So I'm kind of one of those funny people who is fairly conservative, actually, but I wear very plunging necklines when I do my public appearances. And it's a bit of a combination. And also I'm 57 years old and I do attract people from 19 to 90 all over the world across the gender spectrum. But I like to show up as the sexiest woman I can be for my age, and I will continue to do that for the rest of my life. So talking about ageless sex, which is really our conversation today, how do you keep your sex life getting on what I call the upward pleasure spiral, always better and better instead of worse and worse as you get older, as you get, deeper into a long-term relationship? And how do you keep from things getting boring? And how do you keep your body in tip-top shape so that sex stays great as you age?
Wow, you are 57. I had no idea. When I saw you a couple of weeks ago, I thought you were much younger. So kudos to you. And I'm glad to have you on the podcast because this is an anti-aging podcast. And I want to hear all your stories and your secrets. I also read your book, which is called Sexual Soulmate. It's really interesting. And you have a really interesting story how you got into the sexual space.
Yeah.
So explain to our listeners how you got into this realm.
Well, I was a Silicon Valley internet startup executive, really go, very powerful. I was in the boardroom. It was me and all dudes. I was basically in the, very competitive sausage fest of Silicon Valley with Harvard MBAs and Stanford MBAs and blah, 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 blah. And, I've got a bachelor's of science in business administration. I'm not an MBA. I didn't go to Harvard or Stanford, but I held my own with those suckers because I have an EQ, a high EQ. I'm an extrovert and I'm good in sales and marketing and things like that, a natural leader. So I was able to go toe to toe, but it took a toll on my sex life because about a decade into our marriage, my husband and I, both Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, out there traveling around, trying to raise our daughter, had a full-time nanny, go. We lost our way with each other. And he tried everything he could do to get me to be interested in having sex with him. And it frankly, in retrospect, I'll just give you the hindsight story. The hindsight story was that we just weren't really very experienced or facile with sex. We weren't very good at it. And nobody really is. There are a few people here and there who are natural sensualists who's for some, or there's a couple here and there that they just have this incredible chemistry together. But generally, you get married for lots of reasons that don't always include chemistry. And if you got married for chemistry, the chemistry wanes over time, the monotony of monogamy kind of thing. So we said, oh God, we could get divorced like all our friends and start over and get more new relationship energy and fall back in love with someone else. And then we'd be 10 years later or 5 years later, right back where we started again. Let's not do that. That doesn't make sense. That's dumb. We see that happening. what do we need to do? We need to go get a sex education, because the real issue for us was that we'd lost our intimacy. He wanted sex all the time and got mad at me. I didn't want to have sex with him because I was bored. He didn't have enough skills to keep me interested. So, and I didn't have enough skills to know what to do. We were the blind leading the blind, and we did not lead each other down the right paths. It was not good. So we started doing things that were very edgy. We're very brave. We have a lot of confidence. And so we would go to these, and we had money, so we could afford to spend $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 going to a sex workshop for a weekend, or a tantra this, or going to walk on fire with Tony Robbins. We just we went to marriage therapy. We could spend hundreds and hundreds and thousands of dollars on marriage counseling and all this stuff. And we learned a lot. We learned a lot. When we started applying the things we learned in all of these personal development and marriage and family therapist and sex workshops and all these things, we said, oh God, we just didn't know what we were doing. And when we started applying them, our sex life got better, and we came back together, and we had a renaissance in our relationship. We fell more in love. We had hotter sex, and we thought, oh my gosh, we need to bring this to the world. Everybody should be able to have access to this, even if they're not going to get naked and go into a sex workshop in a room full of naked people, which is very edgy. So we said, let's start a company where we can create online programs, home study courses, where you can learn advanced, passionate lovemaking techniques, bedroom communication skills. And then over time, we added sexual health and wellness, because what we realized was, you can know all the techniques in the world, but if you don't feel well, or if it hurts to have sex, or if you have erectile dysfunction, or whatever it might be, none of it's any good. You got to have, your body has to work so that you can have connected, spiritual, fabulous, passionate sex. So we started a company now 13 years ago for us. 13 years we've been doing.
Congratulations.
20 employees. We've got 20 different programs. We've got hundreds of thousands and millions of followers, and thousands of testimonials from people whose lives we've changed. So it's been an extremely wonderful journey. I went from knowing nothing to being someone who there are people who know more than me in lots of areas. I don't know everything about everything sexuality. It is a wide subject. There's a lot to human sexuality. What I specialize in is how to have hot, monogamous sex, which is what most people want. So I talk a lot about being a transgender? No, I just don't know a lot about that. Do I know a lot about whatever? I don't know. So bondage and fetishes and dungeons and things like that? I don't, because my customers are everyday people who just love each other, and they want to keep it going, and they want it to get better. And so that's what I have focused on.
That is a fascinating story, Susan. Great to hear, and thank you for sharing. When I read your book, what I took away and what hit me again, and I keep forgetting this as a man, because the male energy, just in general, is so directed. We're all solving problems. We're like, give me the problem. I'll carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. I'll get it done. Babe, I got this. And a woman's energy is so flowing. It goes from 0 to 100 on a dime, and we just don't realize that, because we expect the same kind of energy.
Linear.
We're like, well, yeah, linear. We're like, well, it was like this last time, so it must be the same. Your book is called Sexual Soulmates. Why don't you give the audience an overview of what you cover in that book?
What I am, you mentioned it earlier, the Dear Abby of sex. You said, she's the Dear Abby of sex. And I go by that title a lot, because I give sex advice. People say, this is my problem. What do I do? And I give them, all right, try this. So for over a decade, I've been hearing the intimate stories of people over email. They pour their heart out to me. They tell me what happened. They tell me where they are. They tell me what they've tried, why it ends up like that, what they do that doesn't work and why it doesn't work, and what to try instead. So I would give advice. And I would see what actually worked for people. Okay, I tried that and it was okay, but we backslid. Or, oh my God, all of a sudden, boom, she took her nightie off for the first time in 15 years and let me see her naked body. I couldn't believe it, that kind of thing. So when I looked at all of the things that I'd told people to do over the years, what really moved the needle for the most people, that's what I put into Sexual Soulmates. It's called the 6 Essentials for Connected Sex.
Okay, so you put all those secrets in that book.
when I boiled it down to what really were, what I like are what I call little hinges that swing big doors. Something that the minute you hear it, you're like, oh, well, I could do that. And it actually makes sense. It was out of your awareness, but once in your awareness, made rational sense and was simple enough that you could do it. Those are the things that I like to teach people, because everything is an 80-20. 20% of what you do gets you 80% of the results. So I don't want anybody to waste time or get discouraged. So I figured out that these 6 things were the things.
Gotcha. Okay, I remember these from the book.
So the number one thing is presence. And that is that men are in their heads strategizing and trying to figure out what to do next to give her incredible pleasure instead of being in the moment with her. Number 2, 1 in 4 men has issues with premature ejaculation. They struggle to maintain their stamina, and so they're worried. So they're doing math in their head, or they're thinking about the grandma's underwear, or roadkill, or like really disgusting things to manage their ejaculatory response. And they're not present. Again, women can be like, "What are you thinking about?" "Oh, I'm thinking about roadkill." "Oh, great. During sex?" Right? So presence, how to get present, because presence is a mindfulness practice during sex, because minds wander. And women, estrogen dominant instead of testosterone dominant, they're thinking about a million things. They're thinking about what they're wearing tomorrow. They got the dishes in the sink. Their mother-in-law pissed them off. Like they're thinking about a million, your beard is scratching me, like all this stuff, and they're not present. So what is presence? How do you achieve it? And what is the practice of presence like? And what is the benefit of presence? The benefit of presence is the interplay of hot sexual desire playing off each other in the moment. Totally worth managing your mind to have that experience. So that was number 1. Number 2 is lover space. This is a particularly important thing for women because we notice all the details, where men are more focused and directed on the outcome of having an orgasmic experience, giving her incredible pleasure. She's noticing the sheets are scratchy, or she's cold, or she's really thirsty, or you've got this little, hair on the end of your penis that's bothering and scratching, and it's weird, So she's getting out of her mind, out of her presence all the time because something's bothering her, because her lover space isn't set up so that she can totally relax. The spontaneous sex, I'm throwing you down on the bed. Well, my hip hurts because my leg is spread funny. Why don't you stick a pillow under it? So I'm more. So taking the time to set up the scene so that you can relax into the moment.
So women don't typically bring that up because they're trying not to hurt the man's ego?
Yeah. Or they don't even know that it's a problem until they solve it, and then they're like, "Oh my God, it's so much better now."
Let's just get it over with.
They're good girls. They follow the rules. They don't ruffle feathers. They don't say what they need. Exactly. Which brings me to number 3. You asked the perfect segue to number 3, which is the Sexual Soulmate Pact. This is probably my best technique I've ever developed in the entire over the 13 years of being a sexpert and giving advice. The Sexual Soulmate Pact is that we are animals, not people. We're slaves to our hormones and our blood sugar levels and our energy levels and our emotions and all of these extraneous things. And also women especially, but men too, are cyclical. So, what worked yesterday doesn't work today, because today she's different than she was yesterday. Today she might be on her way into ovulation and really horny and want to get ravished, or she might be through ovulation and on the wane and just want to be held. So it acknowledges that we're different every day, we like different things, and that we have to listen to our animal body, and we have to have a safe way in our relating with our partner to communicate what it is we need in the moment. And our partner has to be open to hearing it, because they understand that it's not anything they did. It's that we're animals, and that they want the feedback. They know that it's not failure, it's feedback. They're getting the information they need to be the incredible lover that they want to be. And once you get into this pact, PACT, or agreement between partners, where you're just going to say what you need and no one's going to take it personally, because how could you know? You just got to go with your animal body and what she wants, or what she wants in the moment, hard or slow, or 3 times slower than that. Now slow down even more. Lighter,
Mm-hmm.
lighter, even lighter, lighter than that. Could you play with my breasts while you go down on me? Whatever it is that you need, these things are really important. So once you open up that communication channel where you can say anything, and then you add another layer onto that pact, which is you don't want it. This is it seems like a double standard, but hear me out. You don't want, and we're going to go with the masculine feminine. So this could be anywhere on the gender spectrum. Someone's masculine, someone's feminine. Let's just say it that way, right? 2 lovers. And it works in threesomes too, and foursomes and orgies. It all works everywhere. So don't worry in case all you do is go to orgy. Equal opportunity employer here.
You cover everybody.
The trick is not just that, like, hey, it's nobody's fault. Your body's different every day. The trick is that you don't want the feminine to use her manners when she asks for what she needs, because if she has to get out of her animal mind and into her rational mind, it puts her back into good girl. Oh, could you please go softer? No, just go softer. And when the masculine says, got it, how's this? Okay, baby, thank you. Anything else? When he starts to encourage her and not contract when she blurts out what she needs, she can stay in her animal mind. She doesn't have to go out of her, what is technically her theta brainwave state, and into her beta brainwave state. Theta is her orgasmic state. Theta is also the state of meditation. Interesting that the more you meditators make better lovers. The more you meditate, the better you stay present, the better your mindfulness, the better you can blurt things out, the better you can just enjoy yourself during sex. So when he starts to be able to take that feedback with her, and she feels like, oh, he really does want that information, then she starts giving him more information because he acknowledged and appreciated and thanked her for it. Then he gets more information. He gets to be a better lover. She gets more satisfied. The sex gets hotter, and it goes into the upward pleasure spiral of the 2 swirling DNA helixes descending into sacred sexual union and connection with the universe, which is what we like to have sex for. We don't really want sex just to have an orgasm. We want to have a soul connection. That's why it's a sexual soulmate tactic. So, and when a man encourages a woman to just tell him everything, when he's hungry for the information and she starts to fill him in, he becomes so masculine. The polarity, which is my next technique, which is polarity, how to have the masculine feminine magnetism in the bedroom. What are the things you can do to create that, to pull, we women, we're warriors. We're in the corporate boardrooms, we're fighting for our lives out there. And we like doing that. But when we come back to the bedroom, we want to just surrender to our pleasure. We want to be taken on a ride. We want you to lock into our limbic systems. We want you to give us multiple orgasms. We want you to just ravish our bodies. We want to just be completely taken over with pleasure and surrender to that pleasure because you know how to operate our nervous system and you know what to do to give us this incredible pleasure. And that polarity. And by the way, what's interesting about polarity is that once you've learned for her how to get completely into her feminine with sexy dancing and lingerie and, that kind of all those fun things. And when he can pick her up and move her around and take over her body and ravish her and pin her down and tell her how gorgeous she is and give her a little spanking or whatever, whatever your dynamic is. When you get to that point, she gets really, really confident in bed because you've got her as the man. And when you've got her and you're confident and present and really knowing with all that great feedback you're getting how to really give her incredible pleasure, pretty soon she gets filled up with orgasms. She gets really confident about her own sexual abilities and skills, and she becomes this woman who can just have incredible orgasms with you. And then all of a sudden she'll start to switch. She'll want to get on top of you and tell you what to do, and you'll learn how to be, the one not in control. She'll start to take control because you've filled her up in her feminine, and then she can switch, so you can actually play with switching back and forth, and she can just completely take you over and pleasure you and make you go out of your mind. That comes with experience. When men get mad at women for not initiating sex, it's simply because he hasn't gotten her to the point of confidence in her sexuality yet, and he needs to get her to her confidence. That's the masculine feminine dynamic. I'm not making it up. It's the way we're wired. So you got to go with the way we're wired. And once you get a woman to the point where she's confident in the bedroom, where she's not having performance anxiety because she knows you can make her come. She knows she can come with her experiences of being with you. All that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I agree. Polarity is super important because, as you said, in this day and age, after months or years of dating, you start to lose that spark, and then you just become friends, and then there's no polarity. When there's no polarity, there's no attraction, which then causes all kinds of downstream effects.
The downward, swirling down the toilet instead of the upward pleasure spiral. So there's 2 more of the 6 essentials. We might as well finish them off. Is that good? Should we go?
For sure. Let's go.
Do it. Embodied sexuality. This really is a mirror of presence. Presence is the state of mind of being in the moment and bringing yourself back to your lover. Stop thinking about the past and stop projecting your worries into the future, but being in the moment. And what can really help you with that is embodied sexuality, which is looking each other in the eyes, breathing together, feeling your heartbeats, touching each other all over your bodies. It's the physical, the senses, the 5 senses, using those. Beautiful music, some nice water or some kombucha, some strawberries and grapes, some organic oils to rub all over each other, some very soft towels. The lighting is nice. You're feeling each other. Very important. Couples rush sex too much, and taking the time to carve out those hours of pleasuring each other where you have time to relax first before you try to get aroused, where you connect with each other, where you get off your chest the things that are bothering you about the outside world so you can let them go, so that you can put your attention on your partner. And then finally, erotic play dates. The couples that play together stay together, especially in the bedroom. And one of the most important things is to keep learning new sexual techniques together. When you learn as beginners together, when you're in your beginner's mind together sexually, when you're learning a new technique, G-spot awakening, female ejaculation, male multiple orgasm, oral pleasuring skills, new lovemaking positions, full body massage, erotic massage, you name it. There's a never-ending list of things that you can do sexually together. You can get better and better at bed and at pleasuring each other together. You can have longer orgasms, harder orgasms, more intense orgasms, all kinds of things. You can do role play. You can try kinky stuff. You can do, there's just fantasy. There's so many areas to go, so many directions to go sexually, that when a couple says, what do you want to learn next? Well, I've always wanted to learn about expanded orgasm. All right, let's try an expanded orgasm practice. What do we need to do? Well, here's a program, Expand Her Orgasm Tonight, with 21 erotic play dates, right? So in 21 play dates, you learn the process of expanded orgasm, which is also sometimes called orgasmic meditation. Ours is called expanded orgasm because it's for couples, not singles. And it's an ongoing practice that, for example, my husband and I have been doing for going on 15 years now. So we're going to have an expanded orgasm date later today. It's my Mother's Day present. We're going to live. He's going to give me an expanded orgasm date, a due date, they're called, or a deliberate orgasm date. So there's many, many things you can learn, and it's one of the things that keeps you feeling like your sexual soulmates, that you're deepening your sexual connection and connecting to God, to Source, to Gaia through the passionate lovemaking that you co-create.
That is really cool. Thank you for sharing your 6 essentials for connected sex. I'm going to link, and also thank you for giving us the free download to your book.
Yeah, I usually don't get.
You don't? Okay, thank you.
I always send people to Amazon, but I'm going to give it to you.
Thank you. Let's go to what I want to talk about some more. Is I've heard anecdotes from female friends or in society where women comment on another woman's skin and say, "Hey, you're glowing. Did you just have sex?" How is sex good for skin or glow or even anti-aging?
Well, sex is orgasm, and I suppose vigorous sex without an orgasm, but let's focus on orgasm because orgasm is a learned skill. If you are currently what is called anorgasmic or you have struggled to orgasm, just know that first of all, I've got lots of videos on my Better Lover YouTube channel all about how to achieve an orgasm. Male multiple orgasm, expanded orgasm, female ejaculation, G-spot orgasm, penetration orgasm, orgasm from intercourse. It's all up there.
Very cool.
And it's all learned skill. And as you age, you get better at sex. So one of the shittiest things about being human is you get old. One of the most wonderful things about getting old is that you get better at sex if you keep your focus on it. So when you have an orgasm, it is a high intensity interval training circulatory system flush. You basically go and all your neurons fire and all your cells are exploding with energy and your heart is beating and pumping right through the ends of your toes. That is a very, very good thing for your blood vessels, your arteries, your heart. Blood flow is crucial to aging and keeping young. The second thing that's really good about it is there's a hormonal explosion, a hormonal cascade of things that really give you a myriad of benefits for feeling more youthful and feeling more calm and feeling more connected and happy, lowering anxiety and depression, and just making you feel more hopeful and happy. And then there's a nervous system experience as well that it reboots your nervous system. It both calms your nervous system and resets your nervous systems. You can tell when someone's been freshly effed, if you know. You can see it on them. Their skin is clear. Well, after you look at yourself in the mirror before you make love, then you look at yourself in the mirror after you make love and you look 10 years younger. Your face is calm. Your musculature system is relaxed. All those things are good.
It's very interesting what you're saying because there's a researcher named Dr. David Weeks who conducted research at the Royal Edinburgh Hospital. And what he found is couples that are having more sex, 50% more sex, look anywhere from 5 to 7 years younger. So right in line with what you're saying. So if you're listening to the podcast, well, stop listening and go get it on right now. The next question I have for you is when we're young, let's say in our 20s or even 30s, our hormones are raging and we're ready for sex all the time. And at least for men, it lasts longer, but I can't speak for women because I'm not one. But what happens to our libido as we get older, beyond our 30s?
Well, a lot of people think that your libido or your desire for sex is tied to your hormonal levels. And though it is a little bit, if you have issues with hormone production, taking bioidentical hormone replacement therapy is very, very, very helpful, and I recommend it. However, it's probably only about 20% of what affects your libido. Mostly, it's psychological. You are alone, so you're not having sex, and you have anxiety or depression or social anxieties, or you've been hurt before and you don't want to date, or dating's a nightmare and you're just not seeing anybody, and the less sex you have, the less sex you want, and then it kind of goes by the wayside. You opt out, or you've been hurt, you've had trauma, you've had religious repression, familial repression, repression from friends and family, whatever it might be, that have shut you down. Or your partner has issues, they have health issues, they might, be going through some problems of their own. And so they're not available for sex. And so you just kind of give it up. or your health is bad. And so much of hormone production actually comes not just from your adrenal system, but from your gut microbiome. So you've taken antibiotics, or you have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or you've got an H. pylori problem and you've got indigestion, or you have a wheat sensitivity that has given you leaky gut. And then you get leaky brain and you have fog and you're low and your energy is down and you don't feel good. And then you've gained weight and you don't feel good about your body. And then your partner has pissed you off because they aren't living up to their commitments to you or meeting you in the relationship the way you want to be met. So then you don't want to have sex with them because you have a grudge, because you're not really telling them how you feel and you don't have honesty and things get pushed under the carpet and then you get disconnected, or you don't really want to be with your partner. And so there isn't even any affection because you don't want to even touch them, because if you touch them, then they're, going to want sex and you don't want sex because they haven't gone and gotten their teeth cleaned for 3 years and they have stinky breath. Or, there are a million reasons and all you need is one, but usually where there is one, there are 20 or 30 or 40 reasons that all start to stack up and they become an insurmountable issue, mostly due to a lack of general health and some kind of emotional trauma or anger or bitterness or lack of forgiveness or what have you. And so people forfeit their sexuality because they don't want to deal with the problems, physical and mental and emotional problems. So hormones are one tiny thing. In the oldie days, when we didn't eat toxic food and live in a toxic world and didn't have to detox to keep ourselves healthy, our grandmothers had more sex than we do because they weren't so sick, because they didn't grow up in the chemical nation that we grew up in our lifetime. So we're surrounded by toxins. They're seeping into our system from our cleaning fluids and our, you've had these, everybody's been on your podcast talking about our toxic world and what it does to disrupt your systems. So we've got to unwind all that crap, then get on some bioidentical hormones because we haven't been producing enough hormones because we haven't been getting the nutrients we need and we've been living in this toxic world. So then you get on the hormones, but you're still mad at your partner, so you got to unwind that stuff. So the best thing that you can do is detox, eat well, do some intermittent fasting or some fasting mimicking diets to reset, release your stem cells, go into autophagy, take care of your body, get honest with yourself and your bullshit and your partner's bullshit, and start being radically honest, because pushing things under the carpet, not asking for what you need, holding grudges, all that stuff is making you older, making you cranky, not letting you have the sex life that you deserve so that you are a glowing, beaming, orgasmic god or goddess with an incredible soul connection and incredible sex with your partner.
That is great advice. Some of the research into aging across the board is finding that if we don't use our bodies as they were meant to be used, then we start to lose some of those functions. So there's this atrophy that's happening. There's another theory out there that once you're done reproducing, you're not adding any value to the species, the propagation of the species as a whole, and therefore the species in nature has no use for you. And that's why you start aging even faster after you're done with reproduction. According to that theory, it's good to keep having sex because that reminds nature that you're still reproducing and therefore functional to the society. Anywho, coming back to the atrophy, does that also apply to the sexual organs?
Yes. Genital atrophy is one of the biggest reasons. Everybody thinks with erectile dysfunction, it's, I don't have enough testosterone. That's bullshit. It's the fact that now, I want to also say that if you and your partner have basically been together for, the last 10 or 20 years or longer, you've been eating all the same food, you've been exercising about the same, you've been basically living the same life in the same environment. And if they're having ED as the man, you've got ED as a woman. ED for women is something nobody talks about, but we have exactly the same parts arranged in slightly different ways. He's an outie, she's an innie, same amount of tissue. If she doesn't have hard-ons, he doesn't have hard-ons. If he doesn't have hard-ons, she's probably not having hard-ons.
And you're talking about clitoral hard-ons.
Yes, but the clitoris, remember the clitoris is, the tip of the clitoris isn't even erectile tissue. The shaft of the clitoris that goes into the body is erectile. The arms that wrap around the opening to the vagina are erectile, and the legs, the vestibular bulbs that are underneath essentially the fur surrounding each side of the vaginal opening, the outer labia, those are actually clitoris under there. So all that tissue is the same as all the tissue in his penis, his corpus spongiosum and his corpus cavernosum and all that stuff, his head, his glands, his shaft, all those things are inside her. We all start out with exactly the same tissue. It just goes into an outie for him and it's an innie for her. So what happens is most common is number one, venous leaks, where his endothelial cells, the endothelial cells in her and his clitoral or penile structure, the blood can flow in, but it can't lock in and stay. So he can't get an erection. That's number one issue. Number two issue is there's a lot of plaque and fibrin and gunk in the penile arteries so that the blood can't really get in there. So he gets a softie, not a hardie. She has the same problem. That's the canary in the coal mine for heart disease. So the issue is that she's got heart disease too. If he's got heart disease, they're eating the same crap. So that's a big issue. Now, what is great is that atrophy can be reversed, and it can be reversed through genital massage, so penis massage into the buried shaft as well, because he's got 50% of his penis inside him, only 50% is on the outside. So his penis goes way deep inside, and you can get to it through his abdomen, through under his perineum, massage all of that tissue, keep it hard, keep it nice, have frequent erections, have frequent sex, have frequent oral sex where she's suckling on his penis, pulling the blood in and expanding that tissue. That reverses atrophy. He's giving her genital massages. He's getting really into her mons and into her clitoral shaft and into her labia, inner and outer, up inside her vaginal canal, all around inside her vagina, really massaging it and getting it full of blood. That reverses atrophy. Penis pumps reverse atrophy. They're called vacuum erection devices. The only brand I recommend is the Dr. Joel Kaplan brand. They have one specifically for ED to trap the blood in the penis, pump up the penis with blood, and then trap the blood in during the times that you're pumping to reverse the atrophy. You can still have a hard-on.
Is that a digital pump?
They have electric pump and a manual pump. They have a very, very high quality products. If you go to trustyclick.com/Whopper, the Whopper is the one that I recommend because both the testicles and the penis go inside, and it actually creates both girth and length, which is really nice. Other penis pumps are mostly novelty items from China without any safety valve, no decent readouts. They're just crap. Don't buy anything on Amazon.
Now is this girth and length permanent, or is it just temporary?
It's just like building a bicep. So if you go out and you work out and you build up your bicep and it gets bigger and bigger, that's great. But if you stop working out, it'll shrink eventually, but so you have to maintain. Once you hit a certain size, then you can just do a little less to maintain it. So I have a guide. If you go to pumpingguide.com, you can download a book that explains everything about penis enlargement and erectile dysfunction pumping, how to do it, a 13-week pumping guide, exactly what the settings should be, why you want to put your testicles in there and pump like that, not just pump the penis to the edge. There's all kinds of information there about penis pumping, and penis pumps work. So does Gainswave. Gainswave is an acoustic healing technology that gets all the plaque out of the veins and arteries, and it also stimulates neurogenesis, new nerve and tissue growth, so that you're getting more blood flow and more tissue growth. And then the P shot and the O shot, which are PRP, Platelet Rich Plasma, putting the PRP into your clitoral structure. It's so funny. One of my girlfriends said, I am driving my husband crazy. I just talked to her yesterday. I saw her in Vegas. We went to a party together, and she said, we went and we got the P shot and the O shot in San Diego because you told us it was good. And she's like, I am driving him crazy. I've had to masturbate multiple times a day. And like he literally cannot have enough sex with me that I have to now masturbate a couple times a day. She said, I've never had more vaginal lubrication. She's probably, I'm thinking 48, about 48. What I imagine she is.
Wow. Wow. Premenopausal?
Well, yeah, right in there. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Perimenopausal.
Wow.
So she's in heaven with this thing, with her O shot, because she's having incredible orgasms, incredible vaginal lubrication, incredible desire again from one O shot. For me, it took me 3 O shots over a series of about 18 months to really feel a significant difference. I think I had really, even with all the sex that I had degenerated more than she had. I was 10 years older when I had my first one than she is too. So I think that made a difference. But these technologies are really incredible at keeping your genitals in really incredible shape. They kind of take 20 years off your genitals. It's like having a facelift for your genitals.
That's amazing. I'm a big fan of PRP, not because I've gotten it done on my dick, but I've done it elsewhere and it's really had an effect. And so therefore, and it's all your own blood, it's all your own growth factors. And what it does is it attracts, when you inject it in, it cleans out the system, but it also attracts stem cells and growth factors into the place where it's injected. And so a lot of the healing factors within your body come together and they start healing all your systems. So it's very, very good. And then stem cells obviously is the new modality that people are talking about. And Dr. Amy Killen out in Utah is doing a lot of these therapies where they're injecting stem cells directly into the penis as well. And that's causing improvements. And men are saying in their 40s and 50s are saying that stem cells and PRP causes their toes to curl up again like they were in high school. You could just start with PRP and see a big difference. And if you add Gainswave and or stem cells, that's even more amplification and rejuvenation.
Yep. Regenerative sexual medicine.
Now, for women, when we talk about O-shot, are they injecting it inside the vagina or is it more on the clitoral side?
It's on both sides of the clitoral shaft as well as up inside the vagina in the G area. It also helps with pelvic floor muscles. It helps with incontinence. And they say it helps with vaginal laxity. But I prefer, for vaginal laxity, I think that the CO2 lasers or the RF devices that are out there, such as the FemiLifts or the Vavives, those really tighten and tone the vagina. And if you have a lot of pain and thinning of vaginal tissue, I think the lasers and the RF devices that do the subcutaneous patterned kind of targeted patterns inside the vaginal mucosa are very good.
How many treatments of the lasers would you recommend for listeners as a general rule of thumb?
They say usually 4 or 5 passes because it's a fractional laser. So it's only getting 25% of the tissue each time. So it's safely doing it over time. So, 3, 4, 5, 6 passes, whatever is right for you. Where with the RFs that they're working on, like Vaviv, they're saying it's a 1-pass RF experience. I haven't had the Vaviv yet, but it's one of the things that's on my list to try as well, to experience that as a different modality.
The story you just told us, Susan, about your friend who's 48, got the O shot for the first time and can't keep up. 1 O shot.
One
Crazy.
O shot. I know. She's like incredibly responsive to it.
Is that just affecting the vagina or is it also affecting her libido and how horny she feels?
Well, I think since it's increased her vaginal lubrication, that's probably making her feel more aroused because her body feels aroused. So it's telling her mind that she's more aroused too. And also remember, because it's feeling so good, she's having more sex and she's masturbating more. So that's making her feel more turned on generally again. It all builds on itself.
Yes. So
it just kick-started it, I think.
Yeah, the PRP is causing a lot more blood to go into the vaginal area and the clitoris. Yeah. And therefore, because of that blood, it's engorged and she's feeling more pleasure. And then therefore, that causes her to want more sex, which brings more blood in. And like you said, it just keeps building on itself, right?
Yeah, and the neurogenesis, the sensation. You get sensation loss with atrophy. So the nerves atrophy as well as the tissue. The nerves are in the tissue. So when you have regenerative nerve tissue, you feel more sensation too. And one of the things that I liked about the vaginal lasering the CO2 laser that I did. And by the way, on my YouTube channel at betterlover.com, I have 21 videos where I go through my entire experience and tell you, oh, here's some things you need to know before you go, and get this kind of thing before you go do, you need some creams and some arnica and, things like that, pads and things. Your vaginal canals weep from the wounding, and they don't tell you all that stuff. So
I'm going to put up all these links on the show notes, by the way. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's helpful to have all the access to all this stuff.
Yeah. What about? Sorry, finish your thought.
I was going to say that the vaginal it tightens your vagina. The lasers and RF will too.
Do they point the laser inside your vagina?
Yeah, they stick it right up in there. It's like a dildo that shoots lasers out, and they stick it up there and it goes pew 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 pew. And it does like micro damage, and then your body heals it. It calls in stem cells. It calls the cytokines call in the stem cells. It calls in the healing factors from your own body. It's not as concentrated as PRP. It's multi-pass, so it's slow. So PRP doesn't damage, but it does really. PRP actually is like inflammation, where it calls to your body to fix it. So what it does is it really tightens up your vagina, and then you get a much better grip on your partner's penis in intercourse, and then it feels really good again to have sex. You would not believe how different it is from what it felt like when you were 35 versus when you're 55, and what those genital rejuvenation strategies do is take 20 years off your life. They regenerate the tissue like 20 years younger.
So they regenerate the tissue, they make your vagina more lubricated, and just improve your libido as well. And
a lot of women have incontinence. A lot of women pee a little bit every time they sneeze, they cough, they laugh, they run. Our pelvic floor muscles get damaged in childbirth and from aging. And so where men have to get up and pee all night long when they start having prostate problems, women have incontinence where they have there's two kinds of incontinence. There's urge incontinence, like I have to pee, and if I don't pee right now, I'm going to pee my pants. And then there's stress incontinence, which is the laugh, the sneeze, that kind of thing, where you pee a little bit if you do that. And what they say that these techniques don't fix urge incontinence. They never advertise that, but they do. It fixes that too. Wow. Everybody's so different. You never know what your results are going to get. I can't guarantee anything. And I don't sell the devices, so I don't have to worry about what the FDA is saying. I'm shutting me down. I'm just saying what my experience is. I had some urge incontinence. I had some, not so much of the stress incontinence, but my urge incontinence went away when I had that CO2 laser done.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
What about pelvic floor or Kegel exercises, which are more natural and allow you to rebuild your pelvic floor muscles? Do they help at all?
Yeah. And for some women, they're too tight, and for some women, they're too loose. So some women actually need to do reverse Kegels and open. Some women have very, very tight muscles, and they could have vaginismus, they can have painful sex, they could have had all kinds of trauma. So there are a lot of what are called pelvic healers out there now. And if you have any kind of painful sex that you don't think is due to lack of estrogen or something like that, if you have scarring, incontinence, going to pelvic healers can be extremely helpful. They can tell you what muscles are tight, what nerves are impinged, and what exercises to do to either open and relax or tighten and refine your pelvic bowl so that you are back to full operation. It's similar to going to a chiropractor. It's just kind of like, in a way, it's kind of like a chiropractor physical therapist for your pelvic bowl.
Wow. I didn't know there was a profession called...
Tons of them.
Pelvic healers. Okay. Does this apply to men too, or just women?
I'd say there probably are. There aren't that many people who are big on men's pelvic musculature. There are some pelvic therapists who do men's musculature. For most men, the biggest issue for them is premature ejaculation. And that's the thing that men struggle with. And that's definitely partly understanding your pubococcygeus musculature and being able to manage to squeeze those muscles to pull back from the urge to ejaculate. One of the programs that I have is called Multi-Orgasmic Lover for Men, and we teach a technique called the me breath. And the me breath is a combination of three things to help men keep from feeling like they're going to come too fast. One is that they have to breathe deeply up so that they take the urge to ejaculate, move that energy up into their body while they're squeezing their pubococcygeus muscle a certain way to kind of bounce the energy up into their body so it doesn't come out. And then a pelvic rocking so that it relaxes them. They get tight and worried and concerned, and that makes them come even faster than they normally would. The performance anxiety, the worry, the tightness, the fear, the not being in the moment. So the squeeze, the breathe, and the thrust in combination relax the pelvis, bounce the energy up, and help them take that sexual arousal out of their penis and into their body to spread the energy so that they can last as long as they want to.
Sounds like a tantric sex technique.
It came from that, yeah.
I want to ask you another thing regarding men. So there's at least from my viewpoint, and luckily I don't have any challenges at the moment, but I see this problem as twofold, right? First, it's low libido caused by a drop in hormones or what have you for men, or lack of communication, the things you talked about earlier, or just holding on to emotional trauma. Secondly, it could be because there's less blood flowing in and trapping inside the penis, either because there's plaque buildup or there's not enough nitrogen oxide that's releasing or dilating their blood vessels. Mm-hmm. Now, so those are the main challenges. And when we talk about, you said the Gainswave, for example, which is jackhammer acoustic device for your dick.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt like a jackhammer. It just sounds like that. It doesn't hurt at all.
Okay, so it's going to loosen up all the plaque, and so it's going to wash that out, which means now hopefully your blood vessels are going to be smooth. It can come in. The other challenge with men, at least I've talked to some in their 50s, and for a man, it's, men are so in their bodies and they're so macho that for them not to be able to perform when it's time, it's such a blow to their ego, to their sexual ego. And so some men are worried that they can't hold on an erection for a long time. Therefore, they just want to rush to sex so they can prove to their partner that they can do it. They still got it, even though sex might only last 10 minutes because that's the most they can go. So there's a challenge that they have to fix. And some of the techniques we just talked about can fix those problems.
Oh, yeah. I would do Gainswave with a penis pump and a pee shot. And that's the luxury collection, right? Is Gainswaves is the luxury. It works great. And the pee shot is a nice to have, not a have to have. I'd get a Gainswave over a pee shot if it were me. But the poor man's Gainswave and pee shot is penis pumps. You can do that. $200, you can buy a really nice penis pump with multiple cylinders you can grow into, you can pump, you can reverse that ED. You can, when you pump and you open and pull open all the chambers in your penis, you're getting more blood flow in there. Blood carrying capacity is really what the penis pump does. It enhances blood carrying capacity. So yeah, taking nitric oxide supplements. I like citrulline malate. That's the thing I think is the best. Because for a lot of people, arginine is bad because they have oral herpes or genital herpes and it exacerbates them. So it's not as good.
As a woman goes through menopause, what changes in terms of her sexual drive or vitality, and are the techniques that we discussed just now, is that recommended that she get them after menopause? Like, what's the best case scenario?
Every woman's different. When your estrogen drops, you can get a lot of vaginal dryness. You can get painful sex. The skin gets thin. That's what the RF and the CO2 lasers fix and reverse. The O shots bring all that regenerative growth. Gold standard is bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. The RFs and the CO2 intravaginal lasers and RF devices, the P shots, the stem cells, that is fabulous. I also, what I personally do is I use a compounding pharmacy for my bioidentical hormones, and I take estrogen intravaginally as well as testosterone. I rub the testosterone on my clitoris. And then I balance that with progesterone. Yeah, that's like the scream cream kind of thing. And then progesterone sublingually at night, which helps you sleep when you take your progesterone at night, which is good. And then I also have an oxytocin formulation of cream that I use intravaginally. I'm not a big oxytocin producer. My oxytocin levels are low, even though I hug people all the time. I touch my husband all the time. But for some reason, I'm a low oxytocin producer. So I take incremental exogenous oxytocin intravaginally in my vagina. And I put all three things that I put in my vagina, I have them compounded in coconut oil, organic coconut oil, because the carrier creams that the compounding pharmacies use for the bioidentical hormone products are full of petroleum. They're poison. So when I looked at it, I was like, what am I doing? I'm wiping petroleum products into my vagina now. I am not doing this. So I work with Dr. Glenn Wilcox of Wise Medicine. He's also out of Albuquerque, which is weird how many good people there are in Santa Fe and Albuquerque. He works with a pharmacy that makes me the coconut oil stuff so that I have 100% bioidentical, all natural, organic, everything. Because if I wouldn't put it in my mouth, I would have put it in my yoni, which is another genitals. And so I use the coconut oil.
Susan, thank you so much. This has been amazing. There's so much information in here that our folks are going to have to just parse it out. And I'm going to put links to all of your show notes. But before we move on, I want to ask you, how can people find all of your programs and find what's right for them? What are your websites?
betterlover.com and personallifemedia.com. And I'm on Instagram at Susan Bratton.
I'll put all the information in the show notes of this episode, as well as a lot of the topics that we discussed. Susan, thank you for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. You talk about all the things that are my favorites, and you ask great questions for us. Thank you so much.
You can find all the information we discussed in this episode and links to studies in the show notes at antiaginghacks.net. To make sure you get notified of new episodes, please subscribe to the podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram at antiaginghacks and on Facebook at facebook.com/antiaginghacks. And now for the disclaimers. This podcast is for general information purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. Please seek the advice of your health professional for any health or medical conditions.